In the mid-1980s, Los Angeles was a city caught between two cultural waves. MTV had only recently reshaped the way young people consumed music, transmitting videos of their favorite pop stars into the home 24/7, while the new wave underground rumbled in dingy clubs across the country and beyond. At the same time, the mature film industry was wrestling with its own transformation, moving toward the low-budget churn and burn of the straight-to-VHS releases for home consumption. To say, out of this strange cultural collision came New Wave Hookers in 1985, a film that took a different take on the way a mature film could be stylized, marketed, and remembered. At the core of the production were the Dark Brothers, an outfit consisting of adult auteur Gregory Dark and executive producer Walter Gernert, credited as Walter Dark, a pseudonymous team whose tagline for the film was unapologetically bold, purveyors of fine filth. Gregory Dark pulled triple duty as producer, director, and co-writer alongside the enigmatic, hard-to-find details about Platinum Fire. This partnership wasn't just a shared byline, it was a calculated power move. Gregory, armed with a background in art and avant-garde filmmaking, brought aesthetic ambition and cultural edge, while Gernert helped anchor their work with industry know-how and distribution clout. All of this combined, and the end result wasn't just another genre movie. It was underground and edgy, tapping into a subculture the industry had rarely explored. A mashup of punk aesthetics and music video stylization. The cinematography swapped realism for artifice, vivid sets filled with colored gels, stark shadows, and angular framing. The editing was jagged, fast, and more in line with the era's music videos, rather than the languid pacing of other releases of the time, such as the domestic soap opera vibe of the Taboo series or the bright and fun vibe of college comedy Campus Fair that was also popular in the early 80s, all of which followed a completely different aesthetic. However, the director was being explicit about his intent. Dark wanted to make the film feel cool. He leaned into a fantasy logic where everything was exaggerated and knowingly stylized. The soundtrack, pulsing with new wave and post-punk rhythms, only reinforced the film's sense of cultural crossover. The sleek, adrenaline-charged music gave the film its vitality. The accolade for Best Musical Score at the AFAA Awards further demonstrates how disruptive and effective this approach was. With storyline, the film didn't bother with subtle characterization. Its cast embodied brash, hyper-stylized archetypes that blended punk kitsch with soft-core camp. Ginger Lynn played Cherry, a character that embodies the movie's ironic collision of innocence and danger. Meanwhile, Jack Baker's character Jamal Lincoln Bubba Washington and Jamie Gillis's Jimmy are two would-be pimps who launch the film's fantasy infrastructure as they fall asleep and dream it all into being. Kristara Barrington is in fantastic form, delivering an explosive performance as Cammy. Other roles leaned noticeably into cartoonish stereotypes. The Sheik, played by Peter North, the Angel, portrayed by Rick Cassidy, and a dog-like college geek played by Steve Powers are there as a visual and thematic shorthand for the movie's delirious fantasy playground. No retrospective of New Wave would be complete without mentioning Traci Lords. In its original version, she portrayed the devil. Although a brief role, Lords was pivotal to the marketing upon that original release. At the time, she was the industry's brightest rising star. Having her face on the cover was a given. However, in 1986, the revelation that Lords had been under 18 for nearly all of her film career exploded. Suddenly, any title featuring her was considered contraband, legally classified as child pornography. New Wave had to be immediately pulled from circulation. The studio recut the movie, stripping Lords scenes and hastily reissuing with Lynn on the cover. The scandal didn't just tarnish the film, it reshaped the entire industry. Under pressure from the courts, the US government enforced new laws, requiring film producers to keep records, proving all performers were of legal age. Despite and because of the scandal, the film achieved cult status. Among collectors and underground cinephiles, the original cut is highly sought after, while the official release lives on as a marker of the end of the golden age. What keeps the movie relevant isn't just controversy, though. It's the way the film symbolized a cultural shift, a subgenre of mature film absorbing the aesthetics of mainstream pop culture. By borrowing the language of MTV and punk style, New Wave broke away from the mold of most earlier mature productions. It was ironic, self-aware, and visually ambitious in ways genre films rarely dared to be. Even the trailer became infamous in its own right, winning Best Trailer at the 1986 AFAA Awards, complete with surreal cuts, stylized voiceovers, and heavy use of the Plugz' Electrify Me. For many, it was their first encounter with Gregory Dark's neon punk sensibility. The fact that a trailer could garner that kind of industry recognition underscores how unusual and how stylish the project really was. Gregory Dark himself would eventually leave the industry, moving on to direct music videos for Ice Cube, Britney Spears, and Linkin Park, proof that the MTV-inspired style of New Wave wasn't a one-off experiment, but the beginning of a visual trajectory that found its way into the mainstream. Looking back, New Wave Hookers feels like both a beginning and an end. It marked the last gasp of an era when mature films still flirted with broader cultural currents, but it also set the stage for the MTV-inspired aesthetic of the late 80s and 90s. For some, it's a relic of exploitation and scandal. For others, it's a surreal time capsule of when porn, punk, and pop culture collided under the neon lights of mid-80s Los Angeles. Either way, it remains one of the strangest, most defining artifacts of the late Golden Age, a film that made a mature film like a music video, and in the process made history. Okay, as always, thanks for watching, everyone. If you haven't done so already, check out my link in description so you can sign up to stay informed about retro glamour things I have in the works, and I'll see you in the next one.